Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a hot minute. I know I was like, oh, I'm gonna post more, I'm gonna make more videos. It's because I'm an idiot. Needless to say, I'm back. I have some videos in the works. You know, I was talking about them earlier, and the one that I wanted to start with just was not coming along. So I thought that I would do some filler episodes for y'all, if that is okay with you guys. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about some films that have twists. Now, obviously, I'm not going to spoil these movies for you, but I feel like there's a lot of movies where if you know there's a twist, then it in itself ruins the twist. And so if you don't want to know that some of these movies have a twist, or you don't like knowing that a movie has a twist in it, then don't watch this video. But if you want to hear about some movies that might surprise you at the end, especially surprise you at the end, then these are some movies that I have that I remember them having some sort of twist about them. But some of these movies are pretty good, and then other ones are kind of on the lower end of whether or not I liked it or not. So I'll let you know which ones I liked the most. But needless to say, if you want to watch a movie that has a twist in it but you don't want to know what the twist is, then these movies are for you. And I will tell you right now, The Sixth Sense is not on this list. One, because I haven't seen it yet, and these are all movies I've seen before. And two, because it has been ruined out the wazoo. There is no point in putting it on this list because everyone knows the twist. So anyway, let's just get straight into it. The first movie that I have for you is The Lie. This one stars Joey King. It's about her character and her father, and essentially what ends up happening is that she pushes her friend off of a bridge, and the friend does not make it. And so they have to try to cover it up. And so the movie is kind of about them, one, dealing with the fact that their daughter could do something like that, but also her parents trying to continue to cover things up. It's definitely a moral dilemma of how far would you go to save your kid? How far would you go to protect your kid from dealing with consequences? So it's definitely a psychologically sort of thrilling movie, but I don't know if I would consider it to be top tier amazing movie. I was definitely surprised by the twist, and I think the twist is what actually makes this movie kind of good. But otherwise, I think I would if I had to rank this, I would give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars, right somewhere in the middle, because again, it's good in some areas but not so great in others. And I think Joey King is kind of her acting career is very weird, and so this movie, I don't know if it really fits in with the rest of her filmography, and so that's why I think that some of the acting kind of got away from her in this movie. The next movie is The Lodge. This movie is actually, I would consider it to be 3.5 stars, because I think it's actually a really good movie. And maybe in the past I would have ranked it lower, but I think the twist in this movie is actually just really good. And it's what made me want to rewatch this movie. But essentially, it is about this family who decides to go on a sort of cabin in the woods getaway. But when their father leaves, they are left with his new girlfriend, who has some trauma that is definitely still affecting her. And the kids are kind of curious about her trauma, but also they just don't really like having a new mother figure in their life. And so part of it is about the isolation of when is he going to come back? Is he going to come back? But another part of it is just weird things start happening, and it starts to freak out his new girlfriend. And it's a really interesting movie, and I think there's a lot going on with it, but the twist especially is I was not expecting that. The next movie is one that I think probably had a lot of the twist ruined for a lot of audiences. If you've like seen the trailer and you've heard people talk about it, you may know that there's a twist in this movie, but it's the movie Us by Jordan Peele. I love his work. I think it's great. This movie is so creepy. I forget, what is her name? Lupita Nyong'o. I mean, just a beautiful, for one, beautiful, but also just an amazing performance in this movie. And I know some people didn't like this movie as much, but I just feel like it was done so well, and there's so many like little twists and turns, like things that I just did not expect from a movie. And so that's why I feel like it should be on this list, is that there are twists and turns throughout the movie, but there's also like a twist at the end, and I love a good twist at the end. Okay, like that's part of what this whole list is about. And so this movie is just interesting. So the way that it's described on Letterboxd is that a husband and wife take their kids to their beach house, expecting to unplug and unwind with friends, but as night descends, their serenity turns to tension and chaos when some shocking visitors arrive uninvited. And I feel like part of like, if you've seen the trailer, you know that these uninvited guests are people who look like them. So that in itself I don't think is a twist, because it's revealed, I believe, in the trailer and like in a lot of the advertising. So, but there's also other twists. So if you wanted more twists than that, like what are these people going to do, what's going to happen, what do they want, all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of things that are unexpected. So I thought it was a good movie. I would probably give this movie like a 4 out of 5. The next movie is one of my like most recent like favorites, because it's just such a good movie, and I love like existential dread type of movies, and this is one of those, and that is the movie Marionette. This movie is about a woman who is a psychologist, I believe, and she's a child psychologist specifically, and she decides to move to a new country to do her job, and she ends up with this new patient that believes he is in control of her and the things going on in the world, so that he has control over her life. And so there's sort of the question of like whether or not he actually does have control, like if he really is able to control things, or if he's just able to predict her next move. Like it's very, I mean, you're right there with the character of being like, there's no way, that doesn't make any sense, you're just a child, to, oh my gosh, he might be right. Like, he might actually be controlling my every move, and I just don't know it. But I think the sort of question in itself is part of like the twist. And I feel like it's not so much that there is like a twist per se at the end, but like there is definitely like a resolution that is very, at least in my opinion, unexpected. The next movie is Tentacles, and I remember watching this movie not really knowing anything about it, and I think that's the perfect way to go into a movie that has a twist in it, is to just not know anything about it. But essentially, this movie is about a man and a woman who fall in love, but there's like something under the surface that is bubbling up, and it's never what you think. And I remember getting through most of the movie being like, okay, why is this movie called Tentacles? And then you get to the end and it's like, oh, that's why. I was not expecting this. So it's definitely a twist, but it is kind of hinted at with the title. So it's very interesting, and again, if you go into it not really knowing much, then I feel like it's a good movie that you could enjoy the twist to it. I would probably give this one like a 3, just like dead middle. I feel like there's some really good things about it, but also some things that were done not so well. The next movie is actually kind of a similar movie, but I think it actually does a little bit better. I'd probably give it a 3.5. I liked this movie, but it's the movie What Lies Below. Essentially, a mother and daughter decide to go to a little cabin getaway, and when they get there, the mother decides to sort of put on her daughter that she has a new man. And this man, there's something eerie about him. There's something not quite right. And the twist is just like, oh, okay. So, definitely one of those things where, like, if you go into this movie not knowing anything besides like, oh, a mother introduces her daughter to her new man and she doesn't really like him, that's all you need to know. That is all you need to know. You could know even less than that, and you still would not expect what is happening below, or what is happening at the end. Oh, the next movie, another one of my favorites. I'd give it like a 4.5 out of 5. That's how much I like this movie. It's not a perfect score for me because there are some parts that get a little weird that I'm like, but for the most part, I think the writing is great. I think the imagery is great. I don't know. Like, it's a good movie, and that's the movie Malignant. I've talked about it before on my channel. I like this movie a lot. It's a really interesting movie. It's also directed by James Wan, so like, it's gonna be like another interesting film under his belt. Essentially, this woman has these weird and disturbing dreams and visions that come upon her, and not only that, but there's like a killer on the loose, and there are people who are trying to catch said killer, and so there's like some connection between the two. Like, she's kind of witnessing these murders in her visions, but like, she doesn't know why or how. And so it's very interesting. It's like, the synopsis really does not do it justice, because I feel like it's like, once you know the twist, once the twist like presents itself, it's just like, in a weird way, it kind of makes you want to throw up, but like, both in a good way and a bad way. The next movie is one that is like, I would give it a 2. I would give it a 2 because it got really bad reviews, but I feel like it was actually kind of a fun and interesting watch for me. The main character kind of reminded me of my ex, and so that kind of freaked me out. I was like, what the heck? That's weird. Anyway, it's the movie Trap. If you are unfamiliar, this movie it got a lot of attention when it came out. I believe, yes, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie. So like, his movies have been very hit or miss for like the last decade. So like, actually decade or two. Yeah, they've been very hit or miss. This one was definitely like, if you went into it thinking it was going to be a serious movie, you'd be sorely disappointed. But if you give the movie a chance as a comedy, it's pretty funny. It's a funny movie. Either way, it's about this dad taking his daughter to a concert for a pop star, and there's a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's daughter like pushing her music as the pop star in this movie, but I think she does a good job. Like, not saying she's bad, but also it's just kind of funny, very like nepo baby having some fun. Anyway, but he takes her to this concert, and I believe it was in the advertisements, like part of like the like a partial twist, but it's not really a twist because we all know it from the advertisements that when he takes his daughter to this concert, it's actually because they are trying to trap somebody that they are wanting to arrest, and so they set up this scenario so that they could find this man, and so he has to try to figure out how to get out without the police capturing him. So yeah, the concept is really interesting, and I think it's actually a really good concept, but the way they go about it, and especially the main character being like this weird eerie, manipulative type of dude is just like so strange. So, but yeah, as a comedy, I would give it a 3. As a serious movie, I would give it a 2. The next movie is one that I remember hearing about, and nothing could have prepared me for the images I was going to see on screen. I believe it's a Swedish movie. It translates to Border. This movie is very interesting. The plot is that this woman who works at like border control or whatever, who has this kind of ability to like sniff out who's taking in stuff that they shouldn't be. Like, she's the one who like checks bags and stuff, and so she kind of like, she's able to do her job really well, like eerily well. And then she encounters a man who kind of is similar to her, and it really throws her for a loop. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because that's all you need to know. But yeah, I would give a warning that like some of the images and like some of what happens, I guess, in it is just like kind of like intense. I won't say you need like a trigger warning for it, but more so like the imagery is like very, like, I feel like I had a visceral reaction to it. Like, I will never forget how I felt when I first saw this movie, and I want to watch it again just to remember how visceral that was, because it was so unexpected. So if you don't like surprises, of like a 4 out of 5, because I thought it was really good. Like, the imagery, the story, everything, I thought it was really good. The next movie is one that I got recommended so much, and I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I was like, I've got to see this movie, because what is going on? And I can't remember if in the trailer they actually show you part of the twist, but I personally think it's a twist because it was very unexpected for me, because I went in not knowing anything. But it's the movie Sorry to Bother You. I would give Border, like, this movie's very interesting, and it has a lot of like very like representative imagery and whatnot. But I'll just read you the synopsis off of Letterboxd. It's in an alternate present day version of Oakland, black telemarketer Cassius Green discovers a magical key to professional success, which propels him into a macabre universe. So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on, but it's also like there's a couple of twists in there, I think, that are like, I would consider it a twist. Other people may be like, there's not a twist in this movie, but I'm like, if you don't know anything about it, then it's definitely a twist, and you definitely don't expect it. So yeah, I would highly recommend this movie. I think I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. I definitely was like invested in the movie, and I think it's a good movie, but it's not like on my like top list of like, wow, this was such a good movie, I have to recommend it to everyone sort of thing. The next film is kind of like a sad psychological thriller slash horror almost, but it is the movie Marrowbone. I know there was a lot of advertising for this movie, but the twist is just like so sad and interesting, and I don't know, if you like twists, then I would definitely recommend this film. If you like these types of films, like ones that have more of like a period element to it, like it's not a period piece, but it definitely is like set in a different time. But essentially the movie is about a group of siblings who are living in this giant house out in the countryside, and they sort of have to keep it a secret that the adults in their life have passed away, and thus they wouldn't be able to like inherit, sorry, the sun just peeked through, but they wouldn't be able to like inherit the home, so they have to keep up the ruse that I believe like their mother is alive, in order to in order for, I think, one of them to be old enough in order to inherit it after she dies. But also, there's like a sinister presence in the house, and yeah, it sort of like it plays tricks on them and freaks them out. So yeah, there's like a horror element to it, but there's also like sort of just like an overall like dramatic feel to it. I thought this movie was really good. I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. The next one is another movie that's kind of been ruined out the wazoo. This one is, if you haven't seen it, then like, if you haven't seen it and you haven't heard of it, then like definitely go into it not knowing anything. But if you've heard anything about it, you kind of already know what's going on with it. But it's the movie Get Out, another Jordan Peele movie. I love his films, okay? But yeah, if this one is kind of like the Sixth Sense of our time. Like, it's a modern Sixth Sense because it's just been ruined out the wazoo. But I wanted to put it on here because it's a newer movie, and you know, some of you may not have seen it, but essentially it's about this man, this black man specifically, like that actually plays a role in the movie. But this black man goes to his white girlfriend's parents' house, and things are kind of off. Things are really weird. They have a black staff who works for them because they have such a large home, and they act kind of funny too. And so he kind of has to figure out what the heck is going on, and as the title suggests, he's got to get out. You know, he needs to get out. I would give this movie probably a 3.5 out of 5. I know I'm like middle of the roading kind of a lot of these ones that I like, but definitely I don't think it's like up there with a 4. But I think if you had asked me when I had first seen the film, I probably would have given it a 4. But I think other Jordan Peele movies are closer to a 4 than this one. The next film is one of my ultimate favorite films. It's like up there with when people ask me what my favorite film is. This is one of the ones that I usually say, and that is the movie Arrival, starring Amy Adams. I love this movie. I love movies that have like a psychological element to them, ones that sort of mess with your mind, ask questions about life and existentialism, and that's exactly what this film does. And it also, I think, you know, represents the government in a very accurate way. But essentially, this woman, Amy Adams' character, gets called in by the government to help sort of translate and investigate these like space pods that have descended onto different parts of the earth. And so they want her to figure out why they're there. Like, the government wants to know. And there's a lot of weird stuff that starts happening when they go into the pods and stuff. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna give you. But there is a twist at the end, and I really liked it. I really appreciated it. I wish I could do something about the lighting in here, but I have see-through curtains. I think I would give Arrival a 4.5 out of 5. Again, I don't think I would give it a 5 out of 5. Yeah, because there are some elements that I think can be criticized. I think a 5 out of 5 for me is a film that, like, I can't find a valid criticism for it. The next film is an interesting psychological thriller, in my opinion. But it's the film Regression. It stars... Who does it star? It stars Ethan Hawke and Emma Watson. So, you know, you got a pretty good cast. Essentially, the film is about Emma Watson's character accusing her father of doing some heinous things to her. And part of it is about the idea of like memory and like how we remember things, and they bring in this psychologist in order to help her remember some of the trauma that she's lived through. And part of Ethan Hawke's character being there because he's like a police officer investigating this, or he's like a detective, somebody who's investigating anyway, but he's investigating, and he's trying to essentially figure out if he can get evidence enough to, you know, arrest her father. And and it's very interesting. Okay, it's interesting because it really is about how our memories can kind of play tricks on us, and how trauma can affect our brains and how we remember things. And so the twist at the end is just very like, I was like, you don't expect it because you don't expect a twist to be in a movie like this. The next film is The Gift by Joel Edgerton. I really liked this film. I think it has Jason Bateman. Yeah, it has Jason Bateman in it. I know that he's like more of a comedy type of guy, but this film he does really well in as like a drama, psychological thriller type of film. Should I make a list of psychological thrillers that I like? Because I feel like there's a lot on this list. And I think they tend to have more, like it, that genre tends to have more twists in it. But essentially, the movie is about a man showing up in this couple's life, and he is someone that they knew from high school, and they kind of don't have the best relationship with him. Like, he's not their friend, but he's also not really an enemy. He's just kind of like in between. But clearly, something happened between all of them that like has caused there to be some uncomfortable feelings. But when he shows up, he just kind of keeps showing up, and you have to wonder why. And I think the twist at the end is just like mind boggling. Like, I love it. That's why I'd give this film a 4 out of 5. I actually really like this movie. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. The next film is one that I would probably give like a 2.5. Like, it's right down the middle of like on the lower end, but not. I mean, it's not really down the middle. It's kind of down the middle. 2.5 is down the middle, but still. Either way, it's the film Circle. This movie, I believe it was on Netflix. It's not my favorite. I'm not a huge fan of movies like this, but I do think it has a twist at the end that is unexpected, and it's very interesting. And there's a lot of twists and turns in this movie as well. It's about this group of people who wake up in this room in a circle, and they're all sort of standing on these different like areas where if you move, you die. And people are getting picked off one by one, and they have to figure out, one, how the system works, but also two, they kind of are like having to choose amongst themselves who goes next. And so it's very much like majority rule kind of, you know, it's a psychological sort of horror thriller. It's very much about human nature, how people perceive people from different backgrounds and whatnot. Again, I see what they were trying to do with it, but it just didn't impress me. But I was surprised by the twist at the end. So the next film is one that I think is just not a very good movie. I'd give it like a 2.5, maybe a 2 out of 5. I love Keanu Reeves, but like sometimes stars are just in movies for like no reason at all. But there is a twist in this movie, and so that's what I think made it make this list, even though it's not like an amazing movie or anything. Anyway, it's the movie Knock Knock. It's about this man who he answers the door one night, and there's these two women who are seemingly lost on their way to like a party, I believe. And as he's trying to like help these women out, they sort of work in trying to seduce him, even though like at the beginning of the movie they give us like every reason to believe that this man is a loyal man. Like he is loyal to his wife, and so them tempting him is very like, you're not gonna get Keanu Reeves, right? Like, you're not gonna get him, okay? This man is loyal. But also there's some weird stuff as the twist unfolds. And so if you go in not knowing anything, it is kind of weird. It's like, what the heck am I watching? But then the twist happens and you're like, oh, okay, so there's more to this story than just these women showing up. Okay. The next film is Side Effects. I remember wanting to see this movie like a very much so when it came out, but I just it took forever. It came out in 2013. I would have been like 14 then, so I probably was like I want to see this movie, but like also it may have scared me a little bit. I don't know. It's a psychological thriller, so I believe Channing Tatum is in it. Yeah, Channing Tatum, Jude Law, Rooney Mara, Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's got a pretty good cast. Essentially, this woman uh, decides to get prescription medication to sort of handle the stress of her husband getting released from prison. It's a lot more than that, but it's a very interesting film. I believe Jude Law's character, I forget who he plays. Anyway, it's a very interesting film. I was very surprised by the twist. I went into it really not knowing much other than like this lady is possibly going crazy on this prescription medication, which is like if you've ever taken prescription medication for like your mental health, you know that it can cause a lot of like crazy sounding side effects. Like I know for me personally, when I go into the doctor, they always ask me if I am hearing voices or have hallucinations, because like that is very possible to happen on medications that are for your mental health. So there's no shame in getting prescription medications, obviously. Like I'm a huge advocate for like if you want to get medication, then you should be able to get it, and do what works for you, because not everyone can raw dog life. Okay. The next movie is like a 2. This movie was not great in my opinion. The twist is like so, like by the time you get to it, you're just like so bored. I know at least for me, I was bored, and then the twist happened and I was like, oh, well, okay. But I don't know. You may find it worth watching. It is the movie The Tall Man. Essentially, in a small town, children go missing, and they sort of just accept that there's like the tall man who comes and takes them away. And when a woman loses her child, like her child goes missing, obviously she wants to find her child, and so she goes on a mission to find her child, while everyone is telling her like, nah. Like it's one of those kind of like, we have to give something to the gods so that we don't reap any negative repercussions. And like that's kind of the vibe from the town. And so they are like trying to stop her from looking into it, even though she continues to do it anyway because it's her child. But yeah, the twist was like, oh, but not like, oh. Like it wasn't like a revelation or anything. It was just like a weird little thing at the end. The next film comes with a trigger warning for SA, like not even SA, like the actual thing, the thing that I'm alluding to. But it is the film The Skin I Live In. This is actually a great film in my opinion. I would give it a 3.5, maybe even a 4 out of 5. Like it's somewhere between there, because I think that it's a great film, and it's just insane. It has Antonio Banderas. I mean, he does a great job. Essentially, it surrounds Antonio Banderas' character as what is he? He's a surgeon, yeah. He's a surgeon who is trying to, like, create skin, I guess. And his guinea pig is this, like, woman who is seemingly, like, held captive by him, but we don't know why. We don't know like if he's just crazy or what, and that's all I'm gonna say, because you don't need to know more. I think this movie has a lot of twists and turns that you don't expect, and once you find out the big twist, it's like, whoa. And I knew the twist going into it, so I'm sad that I had that ruined for me, because I mean, it really puts all the pieces together, and I think it's good for a rewatch. The next film is another one that I think has gotten ruined by a lot of people, but a lot of people really love the twist, and I think it has good rewatchability. I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. It's not like top tier, but it's definitely better than a lot of other movies that have twists, and it is Shutter Island. Again, very popular twist movie, but I thought I would put it on here because some people may not know. Like, some people, like, I know that I really hadn't heard anything about this movie until I saw it. I think I'm just gonna read what it says on Letterboxd because it's more detailed than I could give. But World War II soldier turned U.S. Marshal Teddy Daniels investigates the disappearance of a patient from a hospital for the criminally insane, but his efforts are compromised by troubling visions and a mysterious doctor. It's by Martin Scorsese. It stars Leo DiCaprio. It has Mark Ruffalo in it. I mean, it's a good movie. Like, it's definitely one that, like, I sat down for. I sat down for the movie. Ooh, the next one is one of my top tier films. I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. It is so good. I love the twist, has great rewatchability, and I love movies like this. Anyway, it's the movie Triangle. It is a loop movie. And I don't think that's giving away too much because there's a lot to unpack with the movie, but essentially this woman and her friends go out on a boat and they sort of run into this cruise ship, and they board the cruise ship and they find that it's empty, like that it's abandoned. And while they're on there, they find that they like can't get off. Like, they can't get off of the ship. And just a lot of stuff happens. And I just feel like if you go into it not knowing very much, it's a great movie. Like, it's so good. And I don't think saying that it's one of those, like, time loop movies gives away too much. Like, sorry if you didn't want to know that, but it's an element of the movie, but you'll find out when you watch it just how it plays into the story and how it makes the story really good. The next film is a film that I've talked about before, I believe, and I think it's sort of a lesser known film, but it's the film The Broken. I would give it like a 4 out of 5. I think this movie's really good. Definitely underrated. It's about this woman who, as she's driving along down the street, she sees a woman who looks exactly like herself. And she ends up getting into a car crash because of this. And so as she's recovering from the car crash, she's trying to like put the pieces together on whether or not she actually saw someone who looked like her, like a copy, like a clone of her, you know? And while she's trying to figure that out, there's also just weird stuff happening around her and to people she knows. People are acting funny. It's just, there's a whole lot of weirdness happening. And so when you get to like the various twists of the movie, like throughout it, it just like unveils more and more of what is going on, and it's just shocking every time. The next film is one that I went into it not knowing much about it. And so I think the best way to go into this film is knowing pretty much literally nothing other than maybe like what the first 10 minutes or so, or maybe 30 minutes is about. It's the movie Hard Candy. It has Elliot Page in it, prior to their transition, playing a young girl who meets up with an older man. And they kind of go on like a little coffee date, and things just take a turn. And that is all I'm going to say about it, because otherwise it gives away too much of the twist, and the further twists that happen, it's one of those, I will say it is one of those talky movies where the characters do a lot of talking back and forth and sort of monologuing and stuff. So if you're not a fan of those movies, then like, may not be for you, but otherwise, really good movie. I'd give it a 4.5 because I like movies like this. The next film is one that falls into a genre of like like dramatic crime movies from like the 90s and early 2000s, where like they're just dramatic and all they're about is like solving a crime, like a series of crimes, and there's someone like Samuel L. Jackson in it or something like that. Like it's and of course Samuel L. Jackson is in this movie, but like it falls amongst like ones where like famous black guy is in it. Cuz I believe there's one that has like Morgan Freeman in it maybe. It does have Angelina Jolie in it, but it has Denzel Washington in it, and it's so similar, like the vibes are there. Um Anyway, it's the film Twisted. It stars Ashley Judd and Samuel L. Jackson. I'm gonna read what they have on Letterboxd for it because I think that would be more helpful than anything. But recently promoted and transferred to the homicide division, Inspector Jessica Shepard feels pressure to prove herself, and what better way than solving San Francisco's latest murder? However, as she and her partner soon discover, the victim shared a romantic connection to her, and as more of her ex-lovers turn up dead, her mind starts to become unstable, and she wonders if she could be the very killer she's trying to track down. It's a fun crime drama. Like, I love a good little crime psychological thriller sort of thing. So, there's there's no there's no lacking in this department when it comes to the 90s and 2000s. So on a similar note, because this one, it's like that movie plus Shutter Island put together. Like this is what this movie is, and maybe even the movie Shutter, that has the guy who plays Pacey in Dawson's Creek, but I can't remember who all was in that movie. Anyway, the next movie is Gothica, starring Halle Berry. First of all, queen. Second, this movie again is like a combination of a whole bunch of like different other movies that I think are great. And yeah, I liked this movie when I saw it. I would probably give it a 3 out of 5. Again, not anything to write home about, but still pretty good. How do I explain this? Okay, so Halle Berry's character is a psychologist who works at a mental institution, and one night she gets into a car accident, but when she wakes up, she finds that she herself is now in the mental institution, and she doesn't know why. She has like no memory of anything, so she has to figure out how she's gonna get out of the mental institution because she's a perfectly sane person, and also she didn't kill her husband. There's also some like ghostly presence that is about is in the movie, but more or less it's one of those you got to figure out what happened to the ghostly presence in order to get them to leave you alone. You know, you got to solve something. And so that's sort of like the premise of the film. It's a psychological horror in my opinion, like there's psychological elements, but there's also like horror elements in my opinion. The next movie is kind of a ridiculous movie. I really only think it's ridiculous because it has, what is his name? Matthew Lillard in it. I love Matthew Lillard. He's a funny dude. And he seems like a sweet man. But essentially it's about this group of college kids who concoct this plan to make it look like one of their roommates takes their own life because there's a quote-unquote policy that if your roommate takes their own life, then you can get a 4.0 GPA automatically. And it's a psychological thriller. I mean, there's so many twists in it. I kind of got to the end of the movie and was like, oh wait, so who died? Who did it? The next film is one that I think has also kind of been ruined a lot because it's been talked about a lot, but I really liked the movie. I went into it knowing nothing, and so the twist was really good. I was not expecting it. So if you don't know anything about this movie, I would highly recommend watching it because the twist really makes it, and it's the movie The Game. Yes, I know, The Game is on this list, and that is because it was a movie that I went into not knowing anything about it. And this one, I'm going to read off the Letterboxd synopsis just because it's a little bit easier. But in honor of his birthday, A San Francisco banker, financial genius, and cold hearted loner receives an unusual present from his younger brother, a gift certificate to play a unique kind of game. He ends up finding himself consumed by a dangerous set of ever changing rules, unable to distinguish where the charade ends and reality begins. And I think that's a good way to explain the movie. Like, you really don't know what is real, what's fake, what's part of the game, what's not a part of the game, what's human nature, and what's an act. It's really good. I was taken on a ride with this movie. I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely more than half. Like, definitely better than some of these other movies, but like not the best. Like, again, nothing for me to write home about. Nothing that I get super excited about, but definitely a movie that I think was interesting, and I would definitely watch it again. The final film is a classic film. It's one that when I went into it, I didn't know anything about it, and I'm glad that I didn't, because you really don't know what's going on half the time. And that is Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock. Yes, we are going back that far. A retired San Francisco detective suffering from acrophobia investigates the strange activities of an old friend's wife, all the while becoming dangerously obsessed with her. Again, great movie, great twist, good times. But yeah, I think it's a really good movie, and definitely a classic that I think everyone should watch, especially if you are into film or consider yourself a film buff. I think, getting at least one Alfred Hitchcock movie under your belt is really important. But those are all of the films that I could think of that had some sort of twist in them, whether it be at the end or it be in the middle or a series of twists throughout the film, just films that keep you on your toes. And I know this list was probably pretty long, but I don't care. I wanted to get this video out to you guys. I wanted to make a video that you could enjoy and maybe sit down and just listen to while you do something else. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and I enjoyed making it. Let me know if there's any other lists of films that you want me to talk about, because I do frequently make lists of films, but I am really bad about actually sharing them. So definitely let me know if you want more of these types of videos. I like making them, so I'll probably keep making them. Let me know if you have seen any of these movies down below, or if there's more movies that you're like, this has an amazing twist, you gotta see it. Definitely leave them down below as well. But I will see you guys in the next one.